Hey guys, I am enjoying a most rare event. A day in which I don't have to do a bunch of stuff. So what's going on in life right now is that my baby's about to be born. I'm keeping a close eye on her. Any day now, the baby's going to come. And if she doesn't come by Tuesday, we're going to cause it to happen. She's going to drink some potion that makes babies come out. Oil, I don't know. So, anyways, I've just taken a minute that I never get these moments, but to just enjoy the quietness of a morning. My wife is sleeping, nothing really is going on, the kids are at school, and I can sit and think and read a bit. So I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it with this strange creature, which is Kit Kat. I kind of like this cat, even though he's a preposterous little dude. He helps me make all my videos. Actually, he walks around and knocks the tripod, tries to rub himself on the tripod, makes the camera shake while I'm making all my videos. But this cat is I suffer him. Anyways, here's a fun picture of me just getting back from alone, and this cat. I don't know, just us. My wife snapped this picture, and she sent a couple text messages about it to some friends. I was embarrassed, and then I was just browsing on Facebook later that day, and I found this picture. And I looked at the picture, and then I looked at the picture my wife had sent of me, and I just started scrolling back and forth between them. Boop, boop, boop. And it was like this. So I thought that was kind of funny. Anyways, Kit Kat is going to pretend to help me here. I'm sitting out here by the pond thinking I need to give some more content about my thoughts to wrap up, and I'm so bad at social media and videos because I don't like to say stuff unless I have something that I want to say. I want to communicate about something, and then I can think of words and I can say stuff. But if it's just like they've probably already heard it all. If I don't feel conviction about something, I have a hard time coming up with something that I feel is worthwhile saying. And if I don't have words that I feel are worthwhile, I'm not going to say any of them. So I decided the best thing to do today is to go and do the question and answer video that I've been promising. I've been promising this for a while, and I'm so bad at social media and stuff, I'm just getting around to it. So Kit Kat's going to help me, and I'm going to launch right into questions that you guys have sent in, and I'm going to try to answer as many of those as I can. If I can set the computer on top of Kit Kat. Here, hold still, Cat. He seems to like it. Although he's getting hair everywhere, and possibly ticks and fleas. So I put out this thing that said, send your questions in the comments on this YouTube video, and then I got some on Facebook as well, and I'm just really bad at knowing how to manage and work all this stuff, how to solicit these comments and all this kind of stuff. But I have the comments here in front of me, and I'm just going to go through and try to just do question and answer as much as I can today, and that'll make it easy for me to understand what to talk about. And then I'm starting to get some conviction about what to say next to wrap up my whole thoughts about the end episodes of Alone and all that kind of stuff. And I have some more gear stuff to do. I actually have a number of seed thoughts now coming on. And once I find conviction about something, I'll say it. Otherwise, I'll be silent. So I'm going to start dealing with the questions, and I'm going to hit the ones listed on Facebook first, and then I'll go to all the YouTube videos. And I've got questions that I pulled from 3 YouTube videos. I could go all the way back to the beginning because there's questions that I've missed the entire time. And I apologize about that, but I'm just going to hit the last 3 right now. So the first question I want to deal with, I pick this one first because it's from a buddy that I recognize. You know how YouTube gives it all random name, so I don't know ever who's there. But Peter Albano, my season 11 bud, commented on the Facebook post, and he says, "Those are some cool mods on your Leatherman. I took one rather than a fixed blade, mainly for the pliers. Thanks, man." And I agree with you. Yeah, the pliers really did come in handy, setting snares and all that, which I didn't really get into on my tool video, the snare setting and all that, and the wire cutters, which was a big part of the Leatherman tool. Did you consider taking a shovel? Mine was my favorite tool I had out there. Hey, Peter, yeah, I remember in base camp thinking about this, looking at your shovel, stressing out about it. I didn't even have a shovel as an option to take at that time because I hadn't sourced a shovel. when you go to base camp, sometimes you can take an extra tool or two that you can then decide and choose between last minute. So yeah, I thought of a shovel so much because the type of shelter that I really wanted to build would have included some digging out. It would have been really similar to Doug's. That's what I had in mind. It was my audition shelter with a fireplace dug into the back wall of it, just like Dub did. That's what I auditioned with. And a shovel would have been awesome. But I just couldn't really figure a way to overcome the deficiency of another tool. And I knew that I could dig with my axe if it came down to it. And I did consider it, and I did stress out about it a little bit. But in the end, I just decided I'm going to go with other tools instead. And I did miss having a shovel. I did. But it's really about the land that you get to, I didn't have a place on my land to dig a dugout shelter facing the right direction up high enough that it wouldn't be in a cold sump on the land. And so for those reasons, I'm glad I took the tools I did. But a shovel would have been, my choices would have all been different if I had simply been placed on the other side of the river. Because across that river, there was a bank just like I wanted. I could have dug down in, south facing. So much is up to chance. Thanks for that, Peter. And I'm glad that your shovel served you well out there. I know those are, it's a lot down to chance of where you get placed. All right. Steely Mike comments. He says, congrats on a good season, Timber. Thanks for that, man. He says a couple of really nice comments. And by the way, there's a lot of really encouraging and really wonderful congratulatory comments and well-wishing comments on my channel. And I just want to take a minute to honor all those and to say thank you. You guys have, especially you guys on my YouTube channel, have really, really been kind about all this and supported even my decision at the end. Even supported that, and thank you. I appreciate that. So, to Mike, did you use the gut hook on the multi-tool? And what was your first real meal you had after you'd been craving, once you got back? So, the gut hook on the multi-tool, my multi-tool did have a gut hook. I didn't build it in, it was already there, and surprisingly, it got approved, and I didn't have to cut it off of the tool. Don't know if it'll be that way in all seasons. They'll probably change that. I should have taken the time to sharpen that gut hook more, because I could have ripped the moose open with that a little more if it had been sharpened. But it wasn't really sharp, and I failed to see to that, and because of that, the gut hook was fairly useless to me on the moose hide, because the moose hide is so tough. And on rabbits and stuff like that, I'm just used to using the tip of a knife to zip down through that hide across the belly and stuff, and so it didn't really enter my mind to use the gut hook, and I don't know why. I remember coming home, seeing that gut hook and thinking, I never used that thing once. I wish I had sharpened it up really razor sharp before launch. My meal I'd been craving. I talk about this a little bit. I craved pizza while I was out there, but I also craved and dreamed about chocolate cake. And it's funny that William mentioned that. In one of my dreams, I was in a church buffet stealing armloads of chocolate cake, and I'm like, it's here. There's so much of it, and nobody's getting it. And I ran to the nursery, and I stashed a stash of it in a cupboard. And I'm like, that's a great food cache. And then I'm like, oh, my car is a good food cache. So I took an armload of this chocolate cake and brownies to my car. I stashed it in my car. I'm coming back, and I load up the third armload, and I'm like, dude, I've got food for weeks. And my wife finds me. This is a dream, remember? My wife finds me, and she's yelling at me. She's like, that is so wrong. You're stealing. There's hungry people here. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And the dream ended. And I didn't get to eat a single piece of that cake because all the cake that I'd stashed vanished as soon as I woke up. I craved those things, but when I got to base camp, the meal that I had that really hit the spot the most was a cheesy quesadilla. This is a few days into the refeeding program, and it was just loaded with vegetables and chicken and cheese, and there was sour cream there. It wasn't enormous, but it was nice, and that hit the spot the most of any meal I remember. That was the moment that you all think, what do they call it, food porn? I know in the military there's reunion porn where people are getting reunited and then it fails to show the difficult part afterwards. And in this case, the food porn part would be I just know you're going to be so into this meal, and I was into each meal, but that was the pinnacle of it right there, that quesadilla. And then when I ate pizza later on in the airport on my way home, it killed me. And couldn't digest things for weeks, it seemed. Somebody, I'm not going to read each name here because I want to keep everybody anonymous. Excellent video. I think I like you better here than on alone. This isn't a question, but I included it because I'm not surprised. I am a strange and weird person, a misfit. I'm a square peg in a round hole, and I understand that. But in the alone editing, they like to take the most misfit moments and put those on screen. So here's something about the alone editing. I'm happy with it all, no complaints. And I'm going to hit a second question here that says, did you do your own editing while on alone? No, I don't. None of the contestants do their own editing. We'd mess it up so badly. And we'd present very different stuff than gets presented, but we'd just mess it up, and we wouldn't understand how to tell the story in a cohesive way. But what happens is, let's see. Oh, yeah, at the beginning, I remember the trailer for Alone comes out, for Alone Season 11. Before anything else, no episodes or anything, just the trailer's there. And I was getting some hate already, people sending me messages and like, you're going to you are an a-hole, this is horrible. And it was because of the clip where I'm doing my ceremony for Fort Moosehead, and I have no shirt on, and I have a torch and an axe, and I'm like, hoo, 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 hoo. And people looked at that, and it was their first introduction to me, and they thought, that's how he's going to approach the wild. He's one of those guys that's going to be out there like, I'm an alpha male, I'm the strongest and the best, and just always be rah, 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 and attack it that way. And a few clips play into that, where I'm peeing on the stick to keep the bears away, and just things here and there. And yeah, there's that element there. But that's not really how I approached the wild, and not really how I approached Alone. But it was interesting to see the people that had that impression, as it progressed. But I'm just not surprised for people to be commenting like this and be like, I didn't like you too much on Alone, but here on the YouTube channel, you seem more like a normal person. And what I find is that every time, even through all my weirdness and craziness, when I sit down face to face with people and we have a conversation, we really understand each other well most of the time. So, anyways, I'm not surprised by the impressions that got formed at the beginning of Alone, and no complaints here, to the editors or even the viewers. But I was curious once a couple of episodes rolled through there, and then people are like, this Timber guy is awful. He's like trying to just be a macho male and all this kind of stuff. Look, I'm weird. I like to imagine myself as a Viking sometimes, like, beard, blood dripping out of your beard, whatever. But I'm not that macho male stereotype. I am a tiny guy. I'm shrimp. I'm very little, and I understand my place in the world. I'm not the wisest or smartest, and I say this in my casting video that I'm also not the strongest. I'm not the strongest. And I have cracks, like in my body and in my mind, but I know where those are, and I've learned to maneuver. I talk about this, so it's fun to point out that that's an interesting perception that got formed based on that clip of my Fort Moosehead ceremony, which some people loved and some people really hated, But whatever that is, here on the YouTube channel is me, and but on Alone, that's me as well. No complaints about how it was put together. Gregory asks, did you ever use a fish weir? I built a fish weir, and when I missed the moose, actually before I missed the moose, I evaluated the land and I said the river is the main source of food here. There's no question. So I'm going to go heavy on just utilizing the river. I'm going to harness the river, and had 3 systems in mind to do that with. I had my fish lines and fishing all under one category. I had my gill net as another system, and I had a fish weir as another system. And fish weirs throughout history have been really effective, and that was a big part of my strategy. I figured that a fish weir could be really effective there, so I built fish weir panels like crazy. Took a lot of time. I was doing a lot through days 5, 6, 7, 8, was working on fish weir panels. And so in the background of some of my shots, you'll see these panels, it looks like comb, like dovetail notched in. It's panels I invented that I could carry and move from place to place in case I wasn't successful in one place. And like a modular system, I could put the panels in, and structure my fish weirs how I wanted. When I build my food cache, you'll see me use one of the panels for that weir as the bottom for the food cache below the moose hide, so that so that wolverines couldn't get their heads in and rip on the moose hide from underneath. It was real tight panels, hammered so tight they would have been hard-pressed. I could have heard them and got them while they were trying to rip through that. But I never put it in the river, and that is one of my regrets, is that I didn't put it in the river. And the reason is because at the time when it would have worked well, I was catching fish more than I could handle on my lines. The time when I killed the moose, right around through there, I was catching more fish than I could handle on just my fish lines. So I had my net there and my fish weir there and my fish lines, but I had as much as I could even try to smoke just coming off the fish lines. And I would even pull the fish lines in sometimes because I was catching so many fish at that time. But I wish that I had smoked fish more diligently. As the days got on and I was eating smoked fish, later on I was like, this is delicious. I didn't think it would turn out that good, but I wish that I had caught twice as many fish. It would have been so nice, that oil in the fish. I gained back a little weight toward the end anyways, but that would have really helped to bring me back after I lost all my energy carrying that moose and stuff. Let's see. Thank you, Timber, for that review and insight. Appreciate that. A question. I always wondered about salt. Are you allowed some salt for preserving meat or just to keep up a sodium level? You are allowed to take salt if you take it as one of your 10 items. You can't take anything in addition to that. So I've had to replace the axe or the paracord or the saw to take salt. And that I had thought of doing that. If there's any way to have changed what I did, I would like to work salt in there because it became such a big deal as I lost hydration later. The reason I'm so skinny in the end is all because of water weight. So it'd be smart to find a way to fit salt in those 10 items. All your structures were top-notch from Johnny Surf Dog. I appreciate that, man. After you first saw the moose and knew it was on, why didn't you begin construction of a food storage and smoker earlier? This is a critical question. It's a big strategy question because I thought of that and I'm like, if I get a moose, it would help a lot to have a food cache system ready and have all this stuff ready. But if it's energy expenditure and timing, if you are building a food cache, the activity of building that food cache with chopping trees and stuff like that is actively driving moose away. So you're reducing your chances of getting a moose while you're building a food cache. And then if you build the cache and don't get the moose, then you're out all of that energy and there's nothing to put in it. So more importantly than that, though, for me, I find at times that I'm like an eensy bit superstitious. I was afraid that I would jinx killing a moose. Just something in the ether would change, and just building a food cache and getting prepared would mean that I didn't kill a moose. I should have had more faith in that or something. But, so, that's a flaky answer, but it's the truth. I was afraid of jinxing it, and so I didn't build a food cache until after I got the moose. I decided not to. And then after I got the moose, I'm like, oh, there's an insurmountable amount of work to be done. But that was mostly because of smoking it more than storing it. It was mostly because of smoking it and having to rush through the shelter to build it into a smoker and carrying the moose, walking about 30 miles or something, getting all that moose carried and all that. If I'd have been eating well during that time like a smart person, it would have helped. I hope that answers your question. How many times do you have med checks on average? I think I can say this. The med checks are basically 3 weeks apart through the beginning until somebody gets into bad health shape or until the conditions get really dangerous. The med checks are about 3 weeks apart. I didn't know that. I probably should have known that, but I didn't know that. And I got out there and I'm expecting, in a week I'll have a med check and I'll see some humans. Nope. I thought maybe they all died. Or nuclear war happened. This became one of my fears out there, that nuclear war would happen while I was out there and Starbucks wouldn't exist anymore when I got back with all that pumpkin spice latte and all that foo-foo stuff. They didn't come the first week and they didn't come the second week. And I'm like, they're not coming back. I better make a life here. And then they came the third week. And then it stayed about that way about every 3 weeks that I knew what to expect. Anthony writes, what are your tips and tricks for not cross-contaminating? This one I'm going to save for time's sake. I'm going to address it in a video that I'll do. Special video. I'll kill and cook some meat, and while doing that, I'll talk about all the ways in which I cooked, cleaned, kept clean, all my strategy like that. Special video coming up. See, I told you I'm getting some inspiration. I'm going to do some videos. Quest to Get on a Lone Show asks, quick question, did you make a smoker for the fish and meat prior to going out to hunt and fish? I guess I just answered that. No, I did not do it prior. But I built 2 different smokers for the fish while I was smoking a ton of fish before I killed a moose. Built a little smoker on the shore with a dugout oven and a smoke vent coming up into a little canopy. It wasn't very big, so I just started hanging them in a larger TP-style thing, and I smoked a lot of fish up there. That's when I caught one of my biggest fish. It was a 48-inch pike. And I don't know if that would be the alone record or not, but only Dub might be beating that record with a bigger fish. David Holt 1442 asks, when you were tying your gill net, there appeared to be some sort of giant comb in the background made of long sticks. That was the fish weir that I was building at the time. That's what's back there, and it did look like a giant comb. That was a wing panel. That was not part of the holding pan because it wasn't tight enough. That was a wing panel, like a 10-foot-long wing panel to just guide fish down into the fish weir. Were you limited to 1 gill net? Yes. 1 gill net. You could make 2, but you couldn't use 2. You had to use 1 at a time, and there were size restrictions on that. Was curious how close the river was to your shelter. My trail to the river from my shelter was about 75 yards. And that's a little longer than I wanted it to be, but it just kind of had to be that way with the way the land was. So that meant every time I cooked or cleaned or something, I was like going back and forth a lot of walking there. 3 weeks ago, I got this comment. I won't read this username. Do you people know anything? I don't know. I love this. I included this just to admit, maybe we don't know anything. You know, after all, you get out there on the land and you're just trying to learn. And there's 100 ways to do stuff. So to this user, commenter, I would say, maybe not. Who knows? All right. At Carol Smith 9120 says, Timber, how did Alone get that footage of the bear dragging away your moose rib cage? You weren't there to film it because you were surprised to find it gone. So, all right, the answer is they supply you in your camera kit with trail cameras. These are motion sensing cameras to capture wildlife. I just put up a few yesterday out in the woods here to see if there are any nice bucks back here. They have a pretty short range, 75 feet. If an animal walks by, motion sensing, and it takes 3 shots or a short video clip. And that's how we got that amazing video clip of that bear. So there was no way, this will answer a few questions. There was no way for me to review that footage. So I didn't know that I had gotten amazing footage of the bear. But when I walked past the camera and looked at the zone, it told me all I needed to know with the sign. You could read the sign easily and tell that a grizzly had come and chewed up the carcass. All right. Next question. Let's get to, I have to switch from one video to another here. And I can tell that this is going to be a pretty long video. So what I'm going to do is probably break it up into 2. I'm going to do 2 Q&A videos. All right. Eric, would you do an all-star edition of Alone? I would love to go back. I would love that. And you might think, well, have your goals changed? What's different about you? Because you decided not to win. Yes, I did. And as time goes forwards, though, and I structure our family's lives a bit differently based on the aid work that we do and all this, it does change. And given an opportunity, I would take another shot at it for sure. For a lot of reasons. Firstly, I just belong out there doing stuff like this. It's the only place that I'm truly comfortable. Well, with my family in my own house and my family, I'm pretty comfortable. And I have some really close friends that I'm pretty comfortable on. But see, I wasn't raised with society. When I left home, this was a rabbit trail. It was very hard, excruciating for me to learn how to communicate with people. It's like the stuff that came out of my mouth made no sense to them, and they didn't make any sense to me. And I had to study and learn going through college people. So, but when I'm out there on Alone in the wilderness doing this kind of thing, I don't have to think about most of it. And it's so comfortable, I feel just that sense of belonging. That's going to bring me to a topic that I'll address soon about what you should do when you find a sense of belonging. Should you just stay there, or should you use that? Like, what should you do? I'm going to talk about this in my next wrap-up of episodes 11 and 12, my final thoughts and reasons for how Alone went and why I did what I did. But yes, the thing is you said, would you do an all-star edition of Alone? You have to be one of the stars in order to do that. I don't know if I am that, but if they called me, I would do it. Susie, what, if anything, would you do differently given another chance to do Alone? What was the number one thing you learned about yourself while in the Arctic? All right, that's 2 questions. We'll hit them both. The number one thing I would do differently just now is go ahead and put my fish weir in the river and just deal with the massive amount of fish that we'd be getting. Just deal with it. Just get it and then deal with it, because it's all going to shut down later. And then if you can't get it, you can't deal with it. You get it first, then you deal with it. And that's my philosophy on the moose. You know, people really harassing me about like how the moose went and they think that it wasted. It didn't. But my strategy was, you get it. In life, you get stuff. And then if it's stressful, you deal. You find a way to deal with it. So I wish I'd done that differently. I wish I'd just put the fish weir in the water and collected all those fish. Used it for a live box, you know, even to keep fish without even having to smoke them. What was the number one thing you learned about yourself while in the Arctic? I learned a number of things. And it's hard to pick the number one thing, but I learned that it is okay for me to just exist. That I don't have to work like a maniac every moment of my life to generate positive effect, but that it's okay, valid, to just exist. Because it's tied into that fact that God made the creatures, and he looked down at what he made, and he said, "Behold, it is very good." And I saw that moose doing that. That moose was walking around out there just being him. And I knew that God was happy that it was there. And then that soaked into me. And that changed my life. That changed my mind. That instead of being just generating something positive, I can exist as the strange creature that timber is. And that is all right. Weird. That's the answer to your question. I think that's the number one thing. Greg, in your sharp tools video, you mentioned that you didn't sharpen the back of your silky saw because it could damage gear while in transit. Are you allowed to take or make a sheath for it? I'm surprised more don't do that, but if no way to protect it, I can see why. I had the nylon thing to slide the saw in that came with it, but it's not really a durable thing. Either way, I could have gone ahead and sharpened the spine of that saw, but if I had been, it would only have been for fleshing hides. And I would have done that with my axe head anyways, because that's all my experience with fleshing hides. I've used an axe head pretty much all my life. So I didn't sharpen the saw for that reason too, I guess. I didn't feel the inspiration to do it. That cat is hunting frogs. Katie. I guess my question would be, if you were a producer, which place or season would you choose to host the show in? I personally believe spring would be the best time to have it, as it would give people more time to thrive without harsh conditions. This is a tough question, and maybe the producers track along with this stuff, I don't know, but I've put some thought into it. If I were called to go back, I'd like to go back to the same spot, obviously, because if I go to a new spot, I'll have to, you have to imagine that everything's different. You just have to learn all over again. But we're kind of dialed in there in the Mackenzie Delta. We kind of know what's going on. That would be the most comfortable choice. But if I were a producer, I would like to put people through hard stuff. And I know what we like to see instead is people thriving. But I keep thinking, what about the barren ground? In this season, we're close to where the trees end. 10, 12 miles from where the last trees are. And beyond that is just barren ground. There's no food there unless some hares probably and the caribou walking across it, which we didn't have permission to kill the caribou. So I don't know if this would ever be able to transpire, but I'd like to see a barren ground version. Like, what I want to imagine is men with flint-tipped spears migrating across the Bering Strait, coming across that desolate and barren ground and do it like that. And I'd like to try that. I'd probably die, but I'd like to try that. And what I'd really like to try a setup. If I was a producer, dream situation, and I'll probably end with this. I'm gonna end with this. So let me see if there's one or two questions I want to hit first, because I'm gonna end with this funny discussion. Katie wraps up by saying, "You made everyone proud out there. You'll always be viewed as a skillful person in our eyes." I really appreciate that. Comments like this lift me up each day. It means a lot to me, and thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. Buddy says, "Your bushcraft is off the charts. Did you acquire all those skills on your own?" Most of them, yes, but no. It's a split, because going back to my childhood is where I acquired probably the most critical skills to me, which is a hard day's work and not wimping out when you're doing a hard day's work. That was from my childhood, from my dad. And also a lot of hunting skills came from that too. But it was later on in life that I was like, I'm going to do focus more on, you know, different points, you know, like friction fires and stuff like that. Somehow that hadn't been part of our system growing up. So I really focused going from there forwards in my life, and I'm like, I'm gonna make bushcrafting my thing because I'm suited for it. I like it. I'm gonna make that my thing. So I would say it's about a split 50-50. My dad gave me about 50% of what I think I have in my toolbox, and then I pursued about 50% more, and I hope to do at least as good for my kids. I hope to. Now we're going to go back to Katie's question, and we're going to pretend if I was a producer of Alone. All right? I'm going to close the computer because I'm going to hit the rest of the questions in another video. This is getting way too long because once I do find ideas to start talking, I talk too much. If I was a producer for Alone, here's what I would do. I would find an environment, either Vancouver Island or up the coast from Vancouver Island, somewhere like that, somewhere that life could be maintained year-round without too much of a -40, you're going to freeze to death thing, because there might be kids involved in this idea. And here's what it is. Go back to that mental picture I had of families migrating across the Bering Strait back in the day. There were humans who did that. We're humans. We can do that. But man, would that be rough? And would it be epic? So here's what I'm thinking. Alone is the individual version, the pinnacle of the individual version of survival. I'm looking at the pinnacle of the village version of survival, society. So what I would do is I would select 10 male-female units. Some of them would be married families, maybe a couple of kids. Married family over here, a couple of kids. Older couple over here in their 50s, maybe adult kids are gone, so they bring no children. Maybe a younger family with a small kid. It'd be tricky. Then a couple of single, you know, a single dude, single lady, you know, stuff like this. Get a mix, but to where ultimately there's 10 male-female units, you know, all together, plus a few kids. And I would basically say we're replicating those first families that came over. So aside from the rules about what gear they would get, there are no rules. It's survival together, relying on one another. But the challenge is this village is going to go on for an entire year. It's going to start probably late spring, so that there's a summer to prepare, because that's when it happens. You know, you walk across the Bering Strait, you're walking on snow, and then as the snow melts, that's where you're like, okay, so we got to prepare for this next winter. So you start there, and 365 days later, the experiment's going to be over. But you've got people, you've got a village to work together with, so this should be possible. There are no rules for how society has to be set up. That is up to the people who migrated into this situation. There's a variety of skills. There's hunters, gatherers. There's, you know, older ladies who may not get out there and hunt, but they might be doing a lot of the food processing, basket weaving, some of those softer home oriented skills that will help out with everyone's game plan. You can work together, you know, to focus on each other's projects. And what I think this would reveal is it would allow for the best of the bushcraft world to show up with the skills, hacks, ingenuity, but it would also allow for the very best and possibly worst of the human soul to show up. And that's what I'm really interested in. You know this. I like to see things when all custom and society and all this rigmarole and foofy flu-fly is stripped away, and the only thing left is the true human soul and spirit. And so what happens? Will someone help another person? Because you often wonder this on Alone. The shape that a person's in right now, surviving and being hand-to-mouth and very desperate. What if there was another person in the mix? Would they help each other? Or would they eat each other? You know? Now, there'd be no eating each other allowed. I guess that'd have to be a rule. But basically, I'd just like to see how society would set itself up. Organically, naturally. Would it be matriarchal? Would it be patriarchal? Would it work together? Would there have to be some society laws come into place about would stealing be a problem? Would stealing each other's food be a problem? Would people help one another? And I'd like to see this happen. And yeah, families could tap out. And maybe when a family tapped out, immediately another family gets inserted in from the pool so that it can go 365 days. And the big challenge would be to see on day 365, would any family, original family, still be there? And what would be the characteristics and traits of that family that got them there? That's what I'd like to see. And if I were a producer, that's what I'd go for. Anyways, that's a long answer to your question. That's a long answer to all your questions, and I've still got a bunch more, so I'm going to do a second Q&A video coming up soon, but I hope you guys enjoy this. Just a quiet day with Timber, answering questions. See you guys.